Welcome to an inside edition of Lift the Gate, where we turn the spotlight on the team behind the business. You'll hear from remote executive assistants who do the work and get practical insights that you can apply to your own business as you navigate hiring your own executive assistant. I'm Katie Santoro, founder and CEO of Lift Business Resources, and today you're going to hear from my assistant, and we're going to talk about how we work together. Cassie, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So recently you said to me in a conversation, I don't really know what I do. And this is like a very common when people say, well, what do you do as an assistant? The answer is I don't know. Like I just do it. Like we do so much. So I really want to talk about, and I mean, you and I could talk for hours on all the things that we do together, but I want to talk about just certain aspects of that to give our audience an idea of what it's like to work with an assistant and the things that you can task them with, because I think the task list, there's so many things that you can do. So Cassie, how long have we been working together?
So I've been with Lyft in general for about 3 years now. And for about a year, I was doing strictly client work outside of Lyft. But when I hit around that year mark, you approached me about assisting you in addition to outside clients. And I was super excited about that and was like, sure, I'd love to. So I started out helping you with strictly marketing support. And over the last 2 years, I would say, though, my role has really evolved in supporting you in a lot of different things, from marketing to content creation to client management to internal operations. It just kind of has evolved into kind of whatever you need and whatever wherever the direction the business is going into, really, as well, how I can support you with all that.
Yeah. And really, like, what it comes down to is you keep me organized in all of these things. Owning a business, there's a lot of different aspects that you have to take on. And no matter how many people are on your team, if you can't stay organized, you're not going to get anything done. And you really help me get a lot done. So let's just talk about that organization aspect, because I think a lot of business owners, we're not always super organized. A lot of times we're like the visionary, right? We're like, oh, I have this really great idea. But then actually getting that idea across the finish line is not easy, because by the time you get halfway there, it's tax season and you've got to do this. And then you get a little bit further and then something else happens. And then all of a sudden, whatever you're trying to work on suddenly isn't important anymore. So how do you keep me organized and get me moving forward in all of these areas?
So I would say I rely on a combination of things, but I think the top three are strong systems, using a task management tool, and clear communication. So I use Asana to track progress on all of our projects, our deadlines. We
Live and
also have,
die in asana.
yeah, we do, we love it. I also have a weekly, we have a weekly meeting, and during that time, we utilize our personal tailored system that works for us to review our task progress and adjust any priorities if needed. And I think that that weekly check-in is crucial because it really ensures that nothing falls through the cracks
Mhm.
from all the things that we have going on.
Yeah.
Um, and then once we talk, I move into setting daily and weekly goals for myself so I can break up large projects into smaller, manageable tasks and make sure I'm getting done what you need done when you need it done. Um, and so it's really just important to, I would say, have strong systems in place, utilize task management tools, and clearly communicate. Those are my top three, I think, for sure.
Yeah, that task management tool, so Asana, however you want to say it, we say it differently. We just used a free version, and I think that works totally fine for us. And I tell people that all the time, like you don't need the paid version. It will try and talk you into paying at the end of your 30 days, but you don't have to. It just makes it seem like you have to. And that works exactly for what we need. We can't necessarily like mark priorities and stuff, but the way that we set up our project boards, we know it's a priority. We move them if it's a priority. We kind of use that visual on the list. And then one of the things that you do for me that I feel is so important, like I can wake up at 4 a.m. and have a thought and put it in an email and send it to you. And you know you're not checking your email at 4 a.m. But I know that when we have our next call, that thought is going to be in our list. You're going to say, hey, you emailed me such and such. Do you want to talk about it? Sometimes we find it was a dumb thought and it was 4 a.m. and like it was, half dream state where you're like, this is a great
Right.
idea. And then when we talk about it, we're like, this is not a great idea. But just knowing that like I can have those thoughts and send them to you and you keep them organized in some way or form is like such a mental relief for me. It's almost like having somebody else carry the mental burden.
Yeah.
We talk about relationships, right? Women carry so much of the mental burden at home. We're, taking care of the kids and taking care of the parents and taking care of the family and taking care of the dogs. And it's heavy for us. And as a business owner, you're carrying all those things as well. And it can feel really exhausting. But knowing that there is someone that will like put this thought somewhere and come back to it with you is just like, it's just such a relief, such a
Yeah.
relief.
And I
Um,
think the great part about that too is when I keep that running list, sometimes we'll visit it, right? I'll say, the next time we meet, I'll bring it up, and you might look at me and say, like you said, like, you know what, let's not go that route. I'm not really feeling that. Or you might say, hey, I really want to work on that. Let me think, let's talk through what I need to do next steps before you can help me move forward, so
mhm.
we can plan for you. It just depends on, or sometimes you'll look at it and be like, I don't have the mental energy for that today. So like, let's talk about it next week. So it doesn't get lost in the shuffle is the whole point.
Yeah.
And if
I
it's
feel like I say that all the time. I'm just like,
something,
I don't have the mental energy, Cassie. It's too deep. It's too
but
deep.
if it's something that's really important, we won't lose it. We won't
Right.
lose that thought or that idea. It always will live there until we decide what we're going to do with it. So
Yeah.
that's really helpful. Yeah.
Now, those weekly meetings, it is something that we require our team members to do with their clients. And that comes from just our years and years of experience of working in executive assistant roles with different types of clients. And then from my own experience, having my own amazing executive assistant, you have to meet weekly. Like, I cannot drive home how important that is. Those meetings for us, we're not just talking through a task list.
Right.
We are, and you kind of hit on it, like we're talking through the strategy of how we do the things that we need to do. Um, I know the answer to this. You might not know, but what is your role in how we strategize through projects?
I would guess that I provide a space for you to verbally process a lot of what's living inside your brain. And I think because we've built such a good working relationship, you also acknowledge and respect my opinion about things as well. So it's not just a matter of I just need to brain dump and I don't really care what you think about this. Take my opinion into consideration and hold it at high regard. So it's meaningful in that way as well. So I would say both, like a little bit of a place to dump and let things out, but also to get feedback on next steps possibly.
Yeah. And that feedback is so important. And I don't think that you're afraid to tell me that something is a bad idea ever. And also your feedback brings up new ideas that I haven't thought of. So just having a second person to bounce that off of is so important in strategy. And you also in the strategy are really good at seeing what the steps are, how we're breaking it down. So,
Mhm.
you know, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and we really break down those steps. And then we decide like, this is something I can do. This is something you can do. I can say, I don't
Right.
have the mental energy for this. Can you take it? Or maybe it's, I have the knowledge expertise to do this part. You do the next part. So we really break it up into like who's doing what. And I think we're very clear on how we communicate that through asana. Like we will break down step by step and assign it. Um, we can use due dates, but we don't really use that many due dates because I just feel like we get stuff done.
No, yeah, not a ton. We have to for certain procedural things like client management stuff,
Yeah.
but most things we just get it done and work together well. So,
Yeah, I know when we do like a monthly leadership meeting, which is the entire leadership team, and Cassie is in on that because she plays two roles with our team, and we can get into the other one. I'll circle back to that in a second, but in those meetings, we do have deadlines on things. It's like this is what we're doing this month, and this is what we're doing this quarter, and those are very big, like top level, this is how we're moving the business forward. And this is what the whole business needs. It's not just about supporting me, it's about supporting the whole team. So in those, I think we have more set deadlines.
yeah.
Um, but so that brings me to the second part of your role, which is as our lead mentor. So you recently started training and mentoring our incoming team members, which is something that we offer to our team members. They're our employees, so we'd like to offer them training and support. Very important to us. Cassie, we gave you that role just because, well, A, you've got experience in education, and you just work like you as my assistant is like just perfect example of how an assistant can work. So tell me when you're working with these new incoming, and they're coming in, I mean, our teammates all have like 5 to 10 years of experience. You're not getting a newbie who doesn't know what they're doing, but sometimes they don't work the same way we do, and they don't have the same ability to stay organized the way that we do, because I feel like we've just come up with some really great systems. What does it look like when you work with a new assistant? What are some of the first things you go over on keeping them organized?
So we have done a really good job recently of creating a lot of branded collateral that's for our Lyft team. That's a resource for them to review at any point. And in the first, we've got a couple of weeks of mentorship, and we go over time management skills, we go over boundaries, we go over our core values as a business. There's a ton of stuff that we go over, and I think the most exciting part for me is being able to create that space for someone that's new, to know that they have a friendly, familiar face that they can go to ask questions. I always reiterate, like, no question is a dumb question. Come to me for anything. So I think that's probably my favorite part of that role. But it's just really getting them familiar with the culture at Lyft, because every job is different, every place is different, and we want them to know what's important to Lyft, and how they should carry that into their lives as far as work-life balance,
Mhm.
showing up during your time blocks and being really great at your job, but also being really great at your life outside of work too, and just kind of showing them how that's possible, that it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah. That's the the biggest thing that I love about this business is like we come in and we work, and I do it too. Like I do a really good job while I'm here. And then when I'm not here, I'm not here.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can reach me if they need to, but like I was thinking to myself last night, like I stopped work at like 3:30. I wanted to start dinner. I needed to mow the lawn. Like there's just things I needed to do. And I didn't get a single email.
Yeah.
Like nobody emails me after 3:30 because we're so ahead of things. There's no fires. Like we've just kept it really organized. And some of that is also that you are really good at anticipating what we're going to need next in the process. How do you anticipate without, sometimes I don't have to ask you to do things, you just do things and then they're done. Like, how do you anticipate my needs? The,
So I would say that I think over time, since we've been working together, that kind of parts comes as part of building your working relationship.
Mhm.
So it's become easier to anticipate what you're going to need, or what might stress you, or what might agitate you, or what might be something that's really in your wheelhouse that you're like, I want to take control of this, I want to do this. So I think it's part of that is just like working together for a period of time. But I think you just have to, in this role, you just have to be as proactive as possible, and you have to communicate. I feel like I'm going to say communicate a million times in this conversation, but it's so important, because if I am keeping a close eye on our ongoing projects, but constantly keeping in touch with you with those weekly check-ins, right? And asking you, hey, what do you need done? What's most important? What's the priority? Then I can usually leave you alone the rest of the week, because we've had a really great productive conversation about what you need done. And I really only hear from you if something pops up that you need help with. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
So what is there are occasionally there are last minute or unexpected changes. I say occasionally, like maybe once every other month. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's not many. But how do
Yeah.
you handle it when I come at you and I'm like, oh my God, we need to do this right now?
So I would say being flexible.
Mhm.
Um, Being flexible and keeping the big picture in mind help me stay on track during those moments. Um, I have to remember that while I am on the leadership team and I do know a lot of what's going on, this is also related to my other clients that I work with. I may not know every single piece of information that's going on in their business. And so I need to just trust them that that's the priority, that's what needs to get done, and I need to just hone in on doing that for them. And I don't necessarily need an explanation as to why. I just need to help support them through that, whatever that looks like. And so it's being flexible. And I think also leaning into and trusting myself and my abilities, and knowing that, like, I know how to shift, I know how to change. It's not going to throw off my whole week. I can shift into what she needs me to do. And then we'll go back to what is left later on, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, kind of a mix of that, I think is. is what it is for me.
That's really interesting because I know you and I are very similar in that like we like processes and we like systems and we don't like a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, just like in this role and also just in my life, like learning how to embrace those changes. I mean,
Yeah.
coming out of burnout, I went through a really bad period of burnout and coming out of that, a lot of it was like learning how to embrace the things that aren't going my way, to
Yeah.
embrace the changes. So it's a really interesting like balance of like we are, I don't like to say I'm type A. I guess I am kind of type A, but I'm also like not super type A about a lot of things. But like
Yeah.
work, I'm very type A and it has to be processed and it has to be organized. So like my day is like that. Like I can mentally see in my brain all of my time blocks and what's in each of them. Um, but then running a business, you have to know like things are going to arise and you just have to be able to kind of roll with the punches sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it's
And I,
allowed me to be outside of work a little less regimented. When I
yeah.
practice it on a daily basis at work, I can go into the rest of my day without being super regimented.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where having organized systems also comes into place because when you're
Mhm.
someone who's very organized and you have to step away from one task to switch to another, you know that when you go back to that other task, you know where you're going to have left off. You know where you need to pick up. You know what step is next, what's been accomplished, what needs to be done next.
Mhm.
And so you can work on that flexibility by telling yourself, I'm so organized and I have this system in place that I know is going to work. This will be right where I left it when I come back to it.
Yes,
So,
I'm not going to drop the ball. It's
right,
going to stay in the air a little bit longer, but I'm not dropping it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
It's a really good feeling.
Mhm.
Um, I had another question and it went out of my mind, so I'm sure it'll come up later and I'll figure it out. Okay, we talked about earlier all the assets that we've created. So Canva is super popular, everybody uses it. One of the biggest problems with Canva is that it is a mess. Like you go into my Canva and there's like a bazillion things, and some of them are in draft form and some of them make no damn sense. But you've done a really good job at getting our assets kind of just organized. And like I can say to you, hey, Cassie, we need a one sheet on this.
Mhm.
Um, so and then we do it. You make it come alive. Let's talk about that process. What are the tips and best practices when we're working together to create assets in Canva or whatever people use other things, but we use Canva.
Okay. I would say my first suggestion is utilizing Canva's brand kit feature. So we have our logo, our colors, our fonts, everything is uploaded in there. That seems like a really obvious, simple step, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because when I go to design things, it's very simple for me to just select what I need and keep everything aligned with our visual identity, which I think is really, really, really important.
No,
Um,
I will say one thing here. Canva is one of the programs that we do pay for. You have to have the pro account. I pay for the pro account, and then you get a seat in my pro account so we can have all those things.
mhm.
The free version of Canva is not going to be very helpful. You can't do the brand
Yeah.
thing in the free account. So, okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I would say as someone who helps you with all of that stuff, it's definitely something to pay for. Like that's definitely one of those tools that you want to pay for.
Worth
Uh,
everything.
yeah, yeah. And then after that, I would say using reusable templates when you can for recurring projects. So any like we just because we just went through the big rebrand several months ago, we remade and added a ton of PDFs, one pagers that we didn't have before. So making a template for those was incredibly easy because it not only again aligns with our visual identity, gives consistency across the board when we give things to our clients. They recognize the format, they know what they're looking for, how to follow it. But that just makes things a lot quicker as well to do that. um, and then I would say organizing folders, like you were talking about how Canva can become very chaotic, especially if you start on a design and then you're like, this isn't what I want, this isn't what I like, it'll come up in your recently used. So I always personally go back to that homepage and get rid of stuff that I'm not using. I delete it out of that section so that it's not distracting me. And then I also have very organized folders within Canva that keep everything that we have going on. So whether it's for our internal team, whether it's for our clients, whether it's something we use on our YouTube channel. It's all organized in there so that honestly, so that if I'm not online and you need to find something, you're going to be able to find it. You're not going to be freaking out, flustered, spending half an hour trying to find one template because you can't get a hold of me and I'm not in my time block. So,
Yeah. Well, if I can't get a hold of you and you're not in your time block, I'm probably not going to get in there and do it myself because I'm going to mess it up and I don't need to be coming behind you and messing up your work. One of the things that we did recently, so as we've been creating these assets, um, and it's not difficult but people miss it. Like if you have downloaded something in Canva, and then you go and change that thing in Canva, you need to make sure that wherever you have it saved on your cloud or your hard drive is updated as well. And we've created, I mean, we don't have a ton of assets that we send out, but we do have like some very specific resources that we send to clients and that we send to assistants. And we've kind of mapped out where those are so that if we change anything, we are going back and we're saying to each other, hey, by the way, let's change everything on the hard drive. We're reminding each other so that we're changing them. We've got it mapped out where they are on the hard drive and also we're saving them on our website. And I think that is so important. I've worked for clients when I was still doing client work who, somebody would go in and change something on Canva and create a new version of it and then you'd have two different documents living in your atmosphere and it would come across as somebody be like, this is wrong, why isn't this changed? Well, it was changed, you just didn't archive the old one or you didn't delete the old one. So we either archive or delete them. There's a lot of archive folders in my
yes,
in my
yes.
cloud. But
And
that's really important too.
I think a good tip there also, at least for me, is I've tried to make the Canva folders mirror the folders that we have on Google Drive so that the file names are very similar, if not the same. So
Mhm.
that when you go in there and you look at the folder, you're like, for instance, our team resource folder, you could count how many documents are in there and you could look in the Canva folder and count to a really quick glance to know that, okay, we've got everything in there, we're all squared away there. So I think that helps too, is having some consistency across the multiple places where things are saved.
Yeah, and it's also one of the reasons that I don't go in and change things that you've created unless it's still in draft and we're working on it together. But like
Right.
if I were like, oh, I want to change, this workflow worksheet, if I changed that and didn't tell you, we've just screwed up a whole bunch of things. So
Yeah.
like having you own those documents is
Hmm.
really important.
Hmm. Yeah.
Having that division of who's in charge there. Okay, so let's just go through that collaboration of designing something new. We've done so much of it. I feel like we have a system and process in place. Tell me about the system and process.
So typically you come to me with an idea, whether it's like a concept or a rough vision of what you want. You come to me and you're like, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I need. And then you do a really great job of letting me take the lead on bringing it to life in Canva. And so, like I've shared previously, over time, I've learned the Lyft brand, your preferences. And so, when I'm looking through Canva, I suggest layouts and styles that fit that. And then I'll give you a first rough draft to get feedback, and you'll let me know, hey, this wasn't it, or hey, I love this, or I love this part, but this needs to be adjusted a little bit. And we just kind of work from there until we get it to a place where it's a final product. And I just think the big thing there, two big things really, are keeping lines of, again, communication
Communication.
open throughout the whole process, right? So, I don't want to spend I'm just giving a rough estimate of time just for sake of talking. I don't want to spend 2 weeks on a document that doesn't need me to spend 2 weeks on it without having had you look at it, because then I'm going to feel all this pride in this document that I made that is so amazing and looks so great. And it just might not be what you're looking for. So it's important to try to get something good on paper, right? Something that's great work and is a great version of what I can give you, but not taking it personal either, and knowing that we're working together on this. And that honesty from you is really helpful because it helps me give you what you actually want and need in a quicker turnaround time. But at the same time, you also trust my design insight. And so I think we do a good job of working together there. I think that's really important, is the communication and collaboration when it comes to designing something.
Yeah, and when you talk about like giving me a really good product to start with, and then I come back and say like these are the things I don't like, and it's usually nothing big, right? Like I might be like, this looks weird on my computer screen.
Right.
Um, but I think that and I've experienced in other roles where you don't have the psychological safety where you feel comfortable saying,
Yeah.
this is what should change.
Right.
And we have that. And it, like, knowing that what you're sending me is a really good version, but still a draft,
Hmm.
allows me to say, this is great. Here's what I would change.
Right.
Whereas thinking that the first thing you send me should be perfect is setting a really high bar and setting us both up for failure. I've worked with clients before where I've sent something to them and they've been like, this is horrible. I'm like, this was literally a draft based on no information that you gave me.
Yeah.
So, I get the information to you at the beginning, you send me a really good draft, and then we work together from there.
Right.
And also I have to let go of my perfectionism because I do trust your design skills so much. And I know that changing one word isn't going to make a difference.
Right.
Unless it is
Right.
something that does really make a difference. But like for
Yeah.
the if you use a different verb than I would use or a different adjective, it's not going to change the final outcome of what we're doing. And I don't need to nitpick through all that. You know, I need to get it off my plate and over the finish line. And I know that you will do that for me in a really great way. And I don't have to be type A about it.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we do is, you keep your to-do list. That to-do list isn't detailed. I mean, there's some detail, but it's not detailed. What happens is once we decide that this is something we're going to do, it goes into asana
Hmm.
and it becomes a task. And that's where I can put in the description, I can say, this is what I've written for this asset.
Hmm.
And we can, if we have subtasks on it, we can subtask it out. We usually don't. It's for Canva creation. There's not a lot of subtasks that we're not doing. And then once it's in Asana and it's assigned to you, you get the final draft done. And then we discuss that draft directly in Canva in the comments directly on the sheet. And then we review it. We always review it in our weekly calls.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it's that communication from like we have that set to-do list that you keep
Right.
color coded and it's like amazing. And we go over it in every call. And then we break it down into our asana and how we break down those things. We communicate on our documents through comments, and
Hmm.
then we review everything in our weekly call again. So it's a
Yeah.
really good flow. And I think that without even knowing that we've done it, we've set very clear communication guidelines. Like, this is where you communicate about this, and this is where you communicate about this. And
Yeah.
I never have to be
Yeah.
like, where did Cassie and I have this conversation? Where
Right.
is
Right, right.
uh,
Because and I will say too, there are different things that I track for you that you know I'm doing, but don't need to see when I'm doing them or how I'm doing them. Um, so we don't put those things in Asana because it would just be, again, taking up your brain space. It's not worth that, right? So that's the kind of stuff that lives on my to-do list and stays in that space. And
yeah.
then the ones we're collaborating on, we really use Asana to make sure we're following through on all the steps and getting to that final draft of stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning that that to-do list, I might have access to it. I never look at it except when you bring it
Yeah.
up on a screen share. I'm never in
Yeah.
there. I'm not adding things to it. It's not
No.
my to-do list because you run our meetings every week.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're controlling that list. Okay. So tell me something. Like I said, we don't know what we do because we do everything, but what's something you wish more people understood about the role of an executive assistant?
So I could feel like I could go on a
Mhm.
long time about this after reflecting and thinking about all the things that I do on a regular basis. But I would say the biggest one is that it's common for people to associate the role of a virtual assistant with basic administrative tasks or the traditional office secretary from decades past. And there's nothing wrong with either of those things, but that perception is just very outdated. If you work with a virtual assistant, you know that it goes beyond that. Um, and so, in my opinion, today's virtual assistants play a dynamic and strategic role that goes far beyond just scheduling and inbox management. We do help with those things, but we're often the linchpin that's holding the whole operation together. We balance multiple priorities. We solve problems in real time. We keep teams aligned and moving forward. When we work with clients that have a small team, we're often in contact with all of those people, keeping things running. And so the role demands a very high level of organization. You have to be proactive, you have to be able to adapt and be flexible. And you have to be able to make decisions under pressure sometimes too. Like you have to, be able to work with your client to help them figure out what needs to get done. We can't be all over the place this week. We've got to hone in on what we really need. And I think that takes a really special skill set to be able to do that. And so, um, yeah, I think we do a lot more than people think. And I also think because we work with such a wide range of clients across industries, we bring a lot of knowledge, a lot of base knowledge, and insight and experiences from other jobs that we've had in the past before we maybe became an executive assistant. And just we have a very well-rounded group at Lyft, with a lot of unique experiences. And I think that it just helps us really support a wide array of businesses in, with diverse and evolving needs. Like it just everything we do, like I hear certain things that my teammates are doing and I'm like, I'm not doing anything like that, like it just depends. And Lyft does a really great job too of assigning us with clients that we would fit well with based upon our skill set, our interests. Um, yeah. So that was a long-winded answer, but I
Yeah.
it's we do really amazing work and we really make a big difference in the lives of a lot of small businesses. And I don't think that everyone really knows what we do or really gets it. So I'm very passionate about explaining it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not just getting coffees and sandwiches anymore. Like
Right.
there's so much
Right.
more behind it. There's so much like technological skills that you need.
Hmm.
Like we've got to stay on top of AI. We're
Yeah.
constantly, what is going on in AI? Like you have to just be on top of things. I was talking to somebody the other day and it kind of dawned on me while we were having the conversation that you think of an assistant as a support role, but in a small business, an assistant is a leadership role.
Yeah.
They are sometimes they're overseeing other team members, not necessarily overseeing like in a managerial way, but in a like, hey, what do you need? How can I support you? Are you getting this across the finish line? Like it's herding cats, right?
Yeah.
And it's keeping the team together, keeping the team communicating. And I think it requires leadership skills. It's not just
Yeah.
a support role. There's so much more behind it. Um, and there's a lot of ways you can go about getting an assistant. Um, but if you need that executive assistant, if you need the next level, the person who is helping you lead and helping you keep everything organized, you need an executive assistant. AI is not going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And your neighbor sister's dog walker is probably not going to do
Yeah.
a great job at it either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a different skill set than,
It is.
the secretary who's getting your coffee.
Right.
Um, you send me coffee, but you don't get me coffee. So very
I have a connection. I know a guy.
You know a guy. So what advice would you give to other founders or CEOs thinking about hiring an EA?
The first thing I would say is do it.
Yeah.
That's like just do it, as Nike
My
would say,
life has
right? And
changed since we
like,
started working together. Like it honestly, like you work 10 hours a week for me. It takes 20 hours off of my plate.
mhm, yeah,
Between the getting the things done, keeping
mhm,
me organized and keeping me focused mentally and like taking that burden off, it really gives me back like 20 hours a week.
yeah. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it does. I mean, that's my easy, quick response is just do it. I think it'll just transform your day in a way that you don't think you can comprehend until you experience it, probably. And yeah, I think if you're thinking about going that route, the first step is probably to think like, what do I need help with? Where are my bottlenecks in my business? Where are my challenges? Um, and not only that, but what do I want to continue to be able to put my energy and time into? And so I think that's kind of like how when I think back 2 years ago when we started, Lyft was growing at that point, and you wanted to really kind of get more of the marketing piece aspect of it going. You didn't have time to do all of that. We were trying to be more present on social media. We were trying to, now we've got YouTube going. And so you sat and thought about, okay, what's our next step? How are we evolving as a business? And what do I need help with? And what can I delegate and what can't I delegate? And there's certain things as the CEO that you can't delegate to me that just, I can't do it. That's not my role. But there have been a lot of things that you have been able to that I've been able to help. And so I think that's the advice I would give is like, if you really are thinking about doing it, think about where you need help. Um, and, and then that's where Lyft comes in. You know, we're also really good about if you don't know where you need help, talking through what you have going on. And, you know, you guys on our team, our leadership team are great to be like, well, let's help you figure out what that is. What could we take off your plate to help you? So,
And that's a big part of our like our discovery call process. Sometimes we meet people that they're just like, all I know is I'm overwhelmed and I
yeah.
don't know what I need. And because we have that experience, so the people who do our discovery calls is myself and our business development manager, Bobby, and we both have tons of years of experience as an EA. We're
Mhm.
not coming into this, you know, as investors who don't really know how it works. Like we're coming into this as people who have done this role and can really look at what the potential client is going through and say, hey, this is where I really think an EA could help you. So it is that discovery call is coming from a skilled perspective, which I think sets us apart a little bit.
Mhm.
And there's also
I
times when
agree.
we meet prospective clients and we say we can't help you. You
Yeah.
know, that's what you need is not what we do.
Yeah.
And you know, we love having conversations with anyone really. So we're
Right.
always open to that
Yeah.
discovery call. It doesn't always have to be a sale. And sometimes, you know, the conversation is if you do these three things, you really don't need an assistant. You just
Mhm.
need some more processes. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah.
I think that that's like one of the things I love many things about Lyft. I'm very
Thank
grateful
you.
to be at Lyft.
Me too.
Yeah, it's just an amazing place to work. But I think that that's one of the things when I think about Lyft is that Lyft doesn't our team doesn't only not only we don't just care about our own personal success. We care about the success of Lyft Business Resources as a business, you know, as a woman owned small business. We care about all of those things and our team and their success. But I feel like everyone on our team truly cares about the success of their clients and their clients' businesses. Like those are the kinds of people that Lyft hires. It's people that really want to see the people they're supporting excel and succeed, and it's just it's different. It's not just, you know, I'm working online for you to just try to make some money on the side. It's not like that. It's very much like I care about your business. I want to see you succeed and excel. And so that you know, human care in the background, you can't put a price on that. I don't think. I think that that's just it really is different.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like you support me in a way that is very much like you care about my
mhm.
success, not just as a business or a business owner, but also like my own personal life and what's going on. Like I know that you support me in all of that. And I really appreciate it. I love working with you and I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Nobody else can have Cassie. She's mine. Not sharing. Um, No, I do share you though. You do client work
You
as
do.
well.
You do.
And like I said at the beginning, like you are exactly what an EA should be, which is why you do the mentorship. So any EA that you're working with us, except for like our OGs who have been out of mentorship for forever, but our newer people have all been trained by Cassie. So they um hopefully are as good as you.
I'm
It's
sure they are.
hard to hard to do. All right, Cassie, any final thoughts?
No, I think this was great. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me. I'm excited for people to watch and to learn more about how we can help and what we do and
yeah,
all the great things behind Lyft Business Resources. It's a great place.
yeah.
So,
Cassie, what should we talk about in our next interview?
ooh, I don't know.
I think we should talk about how you supported me through our rebrand because I probably
Okay.
would have lost my mind.
Okay. We
So
can do
yeah,
that.
that's coming up next.
That's
Not today. We're done today. Thank you, Cassie. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And thank you everybody for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, drop them below. Is there a chat place to drop below, Cassie, on our
Yes,
YouTube?
they can put
Just so you
comments
guys
in. They sure.
know, Cassie manages the YouTube. So yeah, that's where you drop your comments. Thanks. Bye.